Namaskar, good morning from North America, and a very good evening to all the viewers and my beloved community members back home in India. I welcome you all to yet another episode of the Homeland podcast, season 1. As we have promised that season 1 would be dedicated to the diaspora, so I always make sure that I bring, prominent personalities and celebrities and our community members who have been there in the diaspora on every show. So, in continuation of that, today I have a very special guest with me, and let me just welcome her. First of all, Miss Madhu Mujoo from USA. Namaskar, ma'am, to the show.
Namaskar. Namaskar. Namaskar to you, Himalaya ji, and
Thank
namaskar
you.
to all the viewers.
Thank you so much. And just allow me a couple of minutes before I read out her a very brief introduction. Uh, Madhuji is a partner at KPMG. She has had similar roles and profiles at EY, Accenture, and Bearing Point. She has had 23 years of active experience in business consulting, and very recently she has been ranked among us like top 50 powerful women in technology. So very proud of that achievement also. And apart from that, all her professional achievements and all the feathers in the hat, she is also a proud mother of two lovely girls. So let me welcome you again for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
So, Madhuji, I want to start this conversation by asking you questions about your Kashmir, early days of your Kashmir, your childhood. So, how do you remember your childhood in the valley before it actually all built up to 1986, Anantnag, and 1990 to the entire valley?
Very nostalgic question, ji, for a Sunday morning. Uh, Mechu panin lakcharik do, kashir lakcharik do, yad like it was yesterday.
Right.
And I'm from Ranavari. My paternals are from Ranavari. Yus vanana iski garchu,
God,
uh, kashir
button.
button hund activist hun. So that's
Abs-
where my paternals are from.
Right.
And what I remember, we used to live in our ancestral home, like many Kashmiri Pandits would. And
Right.
it was my great grandfather's father's home that we lived in. It
Okay.
was it was extremely big home.
Hmm.
Akka थी उसमें हमेशा याद रोजान चाहे कुन ते कुनस दुनिया के कुनस मंज कैज गसन
Hmm.
Sanis garas manz yeli toy hor esve khasan yat kani ch wanan.
Attic.
Ek taraf kani pet os ऐसे shakhsat Shankar Bhagwan sund mandar ivam
Both.
bozn Shankaracharya.
Shankaracharya.
تہٕ
Right.
پتہٕ ییٚلہِ أسۍ شیشی منٛز ٲسۍ گژھان
Hmm.
تَتہِ اوس یِوان اَسہِ شکتی پیٖٹھ بوزنہٕ which
Okay.
is our parbat Hari Parbat. So یہِ چھِ اکھ واریاہی واریاہی
Nostalgia.
beautiful
Right.
very beautiful experience I would say that I've carried throughout my life.
Like.
That's what I grew up with.
Right.
And as I talk about my maternals,
Hmm.
my grandfather, Sri Amarnath Razdan,
Right.
Tim Shvinkin Sorgavasas Mans, he used to be known as Master Ji.
Hmm.
Timan was board nav. He was a social activist, he was a scholar, he was a politician, he was a poet. And I remember Timais Rozan, which is a village part of Pulwama district.
Pulwama. Right.
Yeles Wosureis Gasan. And I would be with my mother, with my masi, with my brothers and sisters. Yuthi tim tati is as basmans vichan the aprasan ki toy ko chugatsun, and we will talk about my grandfather. Timis ekdam seri gasan with it.
Alert.
Master Ji, Master Ji.
Right.
And it was such he was very, I mean, that love, affection, respect,
Hmm.
and how much reverence there was for
There
the
was.
work that he had done, his father had done.
Right.
I remember those beautiful experiences and the beauty of the whole I mean just being in that village.
Right.
and just it feels like yesterday, going to the Yarbal,
Mm-hmm.
playing with our friends there,
Yes.
irrespective of what class and what religion they were
They
from.
were fine.
These are some of the very experiences that's really made me who I am.
And did you do all your schooling from Valley?
I was in Kashmir till my ninth grade,
Okay.
Hanji, and my last school was Vishwa Bharati,
Okay.
uh, which was again, a very it
Community
was
school. Yeah.
absolutely and foundation of a very Hindutva mindset.
Mindset.
Was the foundation of that school, and then educating the girl child was another mission that they had. So
Right. So
I
it's
had.
absolutely amazing for all of us, all the viewers also, watching you, to know that you are, carrying forward such a great legacy of your father. So Madhuji, tell us something more about, your post the genocide of 1990, when, en masse the whole community landed up in Jammu and different parts of the country, and then all of us had a very very tough time, struggling for, personal front, on the professional side. So we would like to know from you, Toiki Thruzu, to whose journey, from Kashir Patil Drai Namtamans, and, we were actually, I should say, forced to leave, and then you landed up in Delhi, and then eventually to United States of America. So how do you remember that, this journey, and give us an idea how it was like?
Absolutely, absolutely, and I might take you to the lanes that many of us and all of us have been in, and
Witnessed, right?
as painful as it is,
Right.
it's also a lesson that we cannot forget. We can forgive, but we cannot forget.
Forget. Absolutely.
So as I remember and as I sit down with my own girls,
Hmm.
when they ask me to talk about why we left Kashmir,
Hmm.
um, I remember the utter confusion and helplessness.
Right.
My dad, who was a very giving and very affectionate father, brother, son. Timai yamdhon pura kashir hund ult pulat gav tam don shamanai timnas posting Pahalgamas mas timai
Okay.
tamdon, and he came in and he said there is something big that's about to happen. And then he said, main bua is Rosan Nazdik, Timan is Khanar, Gatsan Wajin Kur. So he said, Ki Buddhima Timan Nazar.
Hmm.
So, but there is something big that's about to happen.
Right.
तो ये लिए मेन डैडी जी गई तिम गई वारियाहन लूकन हुंद घर गई यम ऐसे रिश्तेदार ٲسۍ یِم اَسہِ ہمساے ٲسۍ تہٕ تِمن ساروٕنی کوٚر تِمن alert تہٕ کینٛہہ کورِ آیہِ سون گرٕ
Hmm.
تہٕ
And this is 1990, you are
this is
recalling.
Hanji, Hanji,
Mm.
and the very day,
Day,
uh,
uh,
the
of the
very day,
Exodus.
Hanji, Hanji. तो तो अच्छी सारी मगर मैं छु तम साथ मिलिटेंसी ٲس चलान मतलब ٲسۍ आई मीन रिनवायर اوس اَسہِ وٕچھمٕتۍ بॉम्ب بلاسٹ اَسہِ اوس وٕچھمٕتۍ کہِ یِم اَسہِ یِمن سۭتۍ أسۍ گِنٛدان ٲسۍ تِم کِتھ پٲٹھۍ بنے تِم کِتھ پٲٹھۍ بنے
Overnight. Yeah.
ٹیررسٹ تو دیر واز سم سینسٹِوِٹی مگر یوٗتاہ یوٗتاہ میگنِٹیوٗڈ اوس نہٕ پاے کہِ یوٗتاہ گژھِ
Absolutely.
but یِتھُے midnight strike گٔے we all know what happened
Mhm.
and my dad took us all on the top floor
Mhm.
اَسہِ ٲسۍ سَتھ یِم ٲسۍ اَسہِ floor ٲسۍ
Floors.
أکِس فلورَس پٮ۪ٹھ
Mhm.
تہٕ مےٚ چھُ پنٛنِس ڈیڈی سُنٛد اَتھٕ روٚٹمُت تہٕ ییٚلہِ أسۍ ہیوٚر کھٔتۍ تہٕ أسۍ چھِ وٕچھان کہِ لوٗکَن سَمن مطلب یِتھ پٲٹھۍ لہرٕ چھِ
Khamosh.
یِوان
Mm.
تِتھَے پٲٹھۍ چھِ
Hujum. Right.
تِتھَے پٲٹھۍ چھُ ہجوٗب پَکان اینڈ یہِ چھَنہٕ پاے کہِ کوٚت چھِ گژھان تہٕ
Coach
مگر
person.
مگر أسۍ چھِ وٕچھان کہِ تِم چھِ
They're
پَکان
heading towards us, right?
مطلب اگریشن
Mm.
to the point where most of us have PTSD. I mean,
Yeah.
we are
Obviously.
we are we are traumatized to our core. The butchers yuthi bim ye chas wuchan butchers all the more tight
Hmm.
that is atharadan.
Right, as a child, obviously.
हाँ जी. तो اکھ اکھ ہجوم آو سٲنِس گرس کُن تہٕ بیٚیہِ چھِ یِم ہتہٕ ؤدی نفر چھِ یِم.
Right.
تہٕ میٲنۍ ڈیڈی چھِ he kneels down and
Mhm.
he holds me by my shoulders and he says کہ بیٹا اگر یہ دروازٕ یُس اَسہِ آنگنُک دروازٕ چھُ اگر یہِ پھُٹہِ
Mhm.
ژٕ ژٕ ترٛٲیزِ وۄٹھ تہٕ پٔتۍ کِنۍ ؤسۍزٮ۪ن.
Okay.
And this came from a father who loved his child
The
dearly.
most.
And
Right.
I mean, he was the most affectionate person that you
Person.
could ever
Right.
interact with.
Right.
So that was the beginning of genocide for me.
Obviously.
And I still remember the helplessness in his voice, in his big eyes, and in his heart, which was frozen.
Right.
And from there everything felt like our life changed. The helplessness of my dad hasn't left me, and it will never leave me.
Leave.
And from there, there was a overnight forced mass
Exit.
migration in our own country.
Right.
And is dry jom yiman sit me and daddy paran is
Right.
timan panin good escort timan phone ki to hekwe has trevit.
Right.
تہٕ تِمو کوٚر volunteer کوٚر تِمو ترٛاونہٕ خٲطرٕ اَسہِ اینڈ کٲشِر مُسلمان ٲسۍ تِم
Mhm.
تِمن سۭتۍ ٲسۍ اَسہِ واریاہ کلوز فیملی رِلیشنشِپ.
Mhm.
ییٚتہِ تِتھۍ وٲتۍ أسۍ بس سٹیشنس پٮ۪ٹھ جوم گژھنہٕ خٲطرٕ.
Right.
till we reached Banhal.
Mhm.
There were times where my dad hid me under newspapers. I
Oh
remember
my
that
God.
Cetus months Petrovic newspaper.
Mhm.
I could see the restlessness, helplessness in both my parents, my mother, my father, just having a girl child by their side. It was
Obviously.
very, traumatizing. Till that day, in my household, I never felt that I was different than my brother. But it was
Right.
that day when I felt that I was different.
Right.
Um,
Obviously.
Gillis Banhalkot cross. I remember the bus stopping, and that's when I remember my dad breathing.
Right.
It's Carlos Ostimo Bilkul, I'm
Nervous and yeah.
Haji, Bilkul Yatvanchna Shah Band Karun,
Shah Bandas.
Bilkul Ti Halatas As
Hmm.
Timan Gurmas, Mani Mami Gurmas. أسۍ یُتھُے جوٚم وٲتۍ جیٚمہِ اوس نہٕ اَسہِ کٕہٕنۍ جاے روزنہٕ خٲطرٕ. أسۍ وٲتۍ گیٖتا
Gita
گیٖتا
Bhavan.
مندرس منٛز ٲسۍ واریاہ نفر روٗزِتھ. أسۍ گٔے نہٕ گیٖتا مندر، أسۍ گٔے ہری. تَتہِ ٲس اکھ سراے ہری
Right.
ٹیمپل.
Very time. Yeah.
ہری ٹیمپلس منٛز
Mhm.
گٔے أسۍ. And again, it was very confusing for me as a child because یُس ییٚلہِ أسۍ ییٚتہِ أسۍ روزان ٲسۍ
Right.
اوس أکِس کمرس منٛز ٲس 14 دارِ.
Right.
So you can imagine کہ
Obviously.
کوٗتاہ بوٚڑ یہِ اوس. And then یتھ سراے منٛز أسۍ گٔے سُہ اوس واریاہٕے لۄکُٹ کمرٕ,
Mhm.
5 by 7 فُٹ یا
Obviously.
very small کمرٕ سراے ٲس. And I can't be more grateful for Jammu people to make the space for us, for
Obviously.
you
Absolutely.
know to welcome us. But
And
at the
how
same
how
time,
how old were you that time?
I was 14.
Oh, 14. Okay.
Hanji, Hanji.
Mhm.
So it was extremely mm, uh, it was extremely I would say drastic or a dramatic drop from how you lived to where you ended up. Tempat men mummy hin mama ji timan log pai ke achha as gracious and as loving and affectionate they are, they came to take us. But
Right.
yele hun gar gaye, that is already 15 family.
Rosa.
So, matlab aangas manz ٲسۍ تِم کھٮ۪ن بناوان. That was the
Steam.
situation.
Right.
Ji. So it was utter confusion. I remember going out. Me and daddy is ektar fugasan kamrut sand khatra. Timan dhona is mana kamrut chusandun.
Sandal.
Timan dhona is mana makan chusandun.
Kamrit
Mind
Sandal.
timan dhona is mana kamrut chusand.
Kamrit Sandal.
Makan was swarya he. That concept was
Was
dropped
not.
when
Yeah.
we left Kashmir. Ek taraf is me and daddy neran, ek taraf is but mummy neran,
Right.
Kamrutshan. And Jamuk weather was very favorable.
Never very right. That's right.
And as a teenager, when you are displaced, you have different challenges. I mean,
Absolutely.
you're thrown into an environment which is very very new, and this wasn't a migration that was optional. It was
Um,
forced. So
It was forced. Right.
there was no calibration in
Absolutely.
whatsoever.
Mhm.
So eve teasing us very common.
Common, yes.
It was that Jim can lukan hun rehen sehen chu varia
Different.
different. मतलब मैं उसने personally za experience kormut ki sharabich mishik kish.
Mhm.
And Jimmy was duhli asan nafariyum metadoran mazis khasan sharabcha. And
Right.
Matador used to be a very small vehicle that you
Small vehicle,
share.
right. Absolutely.
So these were very, I mean, these are small experiences, but very, I mean, they have they
Yeah,
have deep
lasting impact.
impression,
Yeah.
lasting impact
Right.
in oneself. But long story short, mekor 10th to 12th, I was in Jammu, I say Smuthi Rozan, but
Right.
I used to go back and forth from my masi's home to Muthi, क्योंकि मेरी मासी बख्शी नगर में रहती थी. It was easier to commute. So
Right.
it was a displacement of you know at the peak. Even
Right.
when we were at Jammu, we were trying to optimize space. We were trying to optimize how best
Right.
to really show up, how
Sure.
best to
Right.
show up. It was is mana is trebejrus mummy the boy siles muthi manza is roza
Mm.
as mule kamru, but there were no sanitary facilities there.
Oh, yes. That was
So mummy
right.
the boy is what on trebejrus the that was public point
Mhm.
asan the mummy is doot lagawan that public point is months so
Right.
that I could take shower, she could take shower, and there were hundreds of Kashmiri pandit
Ladies, men.
girls, ladies like us who went through this, and we were very fortunate कि ऐसे was concrete kamr mulmud.
Mhm.
There were people that were in
Makeshift.
tents.
Makeshift. Yes, in makeshift. Right.
Makeshift भी नहीं आप कहेंगे, टेंट फटे हुए टेंट्स में
Whatever time. Absolutely.
yeti saraf is, yeti
Scorpion. Each.
Scorpios is, and yimchine kashir hin saraf, yimne
Um,
toxchi deva,
they're
yimchi
poisonous. Right.
cobras,
Mm.
yimchi cobras, they're poisonous.
Mm.
So, I mean, as I look back, आपने मुझे बोला मैं क्या मेरा experience क्या show.
Experience crash. Right.
As I look back, as much as there is pain, there is
Mhm.
sense of loss. There is also
Loss.
sense of gratitude because यिम्मे जेमिस्मंस,
Mhm.
युसमे जेमिस्मंस वक्त बितो,
Mhm.
um, main learning is कि you cannot live like a victim.
You cannot.
You have to really have that resilience in you
Absolutely. Absolutely.
to face the life and forge
Right.
forward.
Right.
And I mean, if I'm grateful to that, I'm really grateful for that experience
Right.
which I got very early on.
Right.
Yelbu ayas 12th career versus Matamal Rosan. And my mama ji, Shri Ramesh Razdan ji,
Right.
prominent engineer, उनका बहुत बड़ा business था.
Right.
Timamara कर panin timav this panin ahuti panin Kashmiris. Panun
Obviously.
Kashmiri foundation
Right.
was laid in his home. And that's what I was raised with. I mean, ek tarafı yil yemin nana ji is timis RSS mas Times,
Mhm.
he would educate people on what
True.
happened to Kashmir, from going to Juggis to talking to prominent politicians.
People's
He
right.
would be educating people, and then
Absolutely.
my Mama ji, who really gave up his life for Panun Kashmir, for the mission.
Definitely, definitely. And I would like to add here because I have been with a part of Pan Kashmir from last three decades. So, Ramesh Razdanji is a very senior most, and he is still an activist, veteran, ideologue. I mean, my vocabulary fails me at time to know, but he's been a very beloved leader of all of us from Delhi. And, he has always been inspiring us. Madhuji, you told us, I mean, there are a couple of points and very important points because, when we are talking on these issues and you are telling your, exile, I mean, experiences, the genocide, leftover horrific stories. So this podcast also becomes kind of a testimonial for us because it's very important to, record the testimonials when you claim and you say that, what happened with you is a genocide. And Toykuru, but an important point, that took my attention that you said that yes, the entire Kashmiri Hindu community or Kashmiri Pandit community faced what it faced. But being a woman or being a lady, eh, being a girl, because you were pretty young, 14, just 14 years old, so it was an extra challenge. So I can absolutely imagine this, like, you have two young daughters, so obviously when they would ask you ki mummy aapke sath kya hua, just tell us. So obviously your words would be failing you. I mean, you would find yourself short of words. So probably and you being the first lady guest on my podcast, so I would definitely, I want to actually dedicate this entire show to the Nari Shakti of our Kashmiri Pandit community. And we are also very proud of you, by the way, because you are yourself an inspiration to so many young girls, probably from the community watching today. So I would really want to know from you, Toikit Pachu Basan, that Kashmiri Pandit use women folk, because when we say that we have been the victims of genocide, not just from 1986, 1990, but from last 700 years, and we have been relentlessly facing this genocide and religious persecution and onslaught from the Toikit Pachu Basan, because if somebody asks me, I say ki gita var ch atham ch yim cheez ch vhar vod ch kansh garas mas kyan ch function ch, it's only the women folk that remembers. I hardly I have seen any a Kashmiri Pandit man remembering that. So how do you agree to that, and how do you see that thing in a broader perspective?
That's a great question. And as you said, Himalaya ji, I'm a mother of two. I mean, I have to say that I'm extremely blessed, because I was, the person who gave me birth. She is Shakti herself,
Obviously.
and I'm here because of her, because she gave me the wings.
And we would like to know their names also, if you don't mind.
Hanji, Hanji. My mother's name is Sri Veena Mujoo,
Mhm.
and during this genocide, I lost my dad. He was 38 when we lost him. My mother was barely 36,
Oh,
and she had two teenagers to look after. She had a great support system. Her brother was, like a, I would say he was Mount Everest behind all
right.
of us, and blessed with a lot of wisdom.
Mhm.
Yet I mean, it was Yatvananchi Nabatrat. That's
Navitra.
how it was.
Absolutely.
But I mean, she faced life with lot of dignity, a lot of respect, and really dedicated her life to her family,
Mhm.
including her kids. But to your question, I mean, if I could look back, and being a guy, and your observation is very astute. Câte nafran që vuhrua djadroza, câte nafran që ju se सामग्री që lagan चाहे सो vuhrua dis lagi herti lagi या navres per
Navres, right.
që yi सब që करा câte mardन që su
Yad Rose. Rosa.
So I do feel कि यُس یہِ word چھُ کورِ مٔہنیو یُس
Mhm.
اَسہِ word چھُ بنومُت تہٕ یُس
Mhm.
أسۍ ہر گرس منٛز ہر وقتہٕ چھِ أسۍ یہِ word
Use kar.
استعمال کران
Uh,
یہِ چھُ اَسہِ drop کرُن یہِ چھُ
mhm.
واریاہ واریاہ important اَسہِ drop
Very
کرُن
important. I think the most important message from this show is this. What you just said.
بالکل بالکل and اگر تۄہہِ you know I mean um, literally agar you know as we I do want to you know I do want to recognize that there is a deep PTSD that
Mhm.
that makes our elders right
Right.
you know think like that because کہ
Yeah.
اَسہِ چھُ مطلب 7 ؤری یتھ community genocide آسہِ گوٚمُت
Gomut.
Tim Karan, a woman being the, being the carrier of the next generation,
Generation.
they would want to protect them.
Absolutely.
But har waqt chu different. Your swinkenes as protection chu zorat, your swinken as Simon Gordon protection chu zorat.
Right.
Or enablement. I won't even call protection, I will call enablement chu zorat.
Empowerment. Right. Exactly.
Very different. तो सो कथ हिसाबस मन छ डिफरेंट सो छ अथ हिसाबस मन डिफरेंट कि हर गरस मन ये नेचिव छ तिमन दियो तो सोई ट्रेनिंग योस तो कोरन छ दिवान
Right.
तिमन कर तिमन हेचनेव तो तिमय रीति रिवाज यम यो सेंसिटिविटी कोरन मन छ इस दिवान
Inculcate kar.
very
Absolutely.
very important क्योंकि सैन लड़के छ आउट ऑफ कम्युनिटी खानदार करा
Mhm.
यथ गरस मज कूर बस मे सरस्वत ब्राह्मण सत खानदर कोनमुत मज रोजान
Right.
बट मेनिस गरस मज वटुक बर मेनिस गरस
Varna.
मज हर सू ट्रेडिशन गसन युस मे पन्ने ग्रैंड मदर दादी जी वुच युस मे नानी जी वुच युस मे पन्ने बड़ नानी जी वुच because
Which
I was fortunate enough to spend time with her
time with you?
yus beh panne mummy chas wuchan
Right.
so but same thing doesn't happen with the guys that marry a non-Kashmiri so toy ki purchu timan train karan toy kya sanskar chu ladkan devan is going to define how stable our culture is it's very
Yes.
very important
Right.
uh, I know, I mean, I've been very, very fortunate. Yele panun Kashmiri moment start gaye.
Right.
I mean, Shakti auntie, Dr. Shakti auntie,
Mhm.
Nancy auntie ji,
Right.
Nancy Taneja ji. They used to talk about women rights, and they both were married to non-Kashmiris.
Mhm.
Yet, as they were fighting for Panun Kashmir, their rights were dissolved.
Right.
Why were their rights dissolved? Because they married a non-Kashmiri Hindu.
Yes. You're talking about that. The before Article 35A thing was there, right, in Jammu and Kashmir.
That's exactly correct. That's
Right.
exactly correct. And abhi bhi agar tui kashir agar tui J&K gesiv toy chu ladka to toy chu kur. And
Mhm.
if you decide to give your estate to your daughter, they will not endorse it.
Right.
They will not. They will say ki na aise kam na kaira. Why?
There definitely there are so many hassles and hitches still over there. It's not that smooth yet.
So I would say it's a systematic. It's a very. It's we have architected
Right.
a discrimination
Uh,
against
womenhood.
Kashmiri Pandit
Right.
females. And we really have to address it. We have to address it at all fronts, be it Panun Kashmir, be it any other moment. We have to really talk about it because, as a reminder, it's really the Kashmiri Pandit girls that are going to help
Absolutely.
sustain and grow what our heritage is, what our culture is. It's very, very important. The bay, yum podcast wuchen ya bozan
Right.
ak message yus buddhima margin being a mother
Right.
myself
Absolutely.
panyan koren pet trust your girls trust
Right.
your girls and give them the wings so that they can fly high
Mhm.
timan tihin pankh mat setiv timan
Right.
diu to tita strong pankh ke they can fly high I mean I keep telling my girls that it was really my parents faith it was my mama ji's trust in me मेरे जो नाना जी थे वो
जी,
बोलते थे, खुद ही को कर बुलंद इतना
बुलंद
कि
इतना,
खुदा तुमसे पूछे, बता तेरी
तेरी
रज़ा
रज़ा,
क्या है।
राइट,
And he would remind me this every day, and I will say, go and build that killer instinct in your girls.
राइट,
Aski timchunu toi- And it's not just about financial stability, it's about social stability, it's
सोशल,
about cultural stability. Yel toi timan, yel toi timan strong baneve, Kanun Kashmir is gonna happen. Kanun Kashmir will happen in every home.
So I think this is like a spate of important messages that you just sent to the community, and I hope not only just the women folk but also the men folk are listening to you very keenly. And I think when we talk, you just brought that thing up that you're married to a Saraswat Brahman, and I think I was talking to you, Madhuji, last day over phone, and you told me this interesting fact that you know I think your better half, he also traces his origins to Kashmir. So how do you think and see that in the context of our overall genocide? Because history tells us that this is not the first wave of genocide of 1990. We have seen it like 6 times before it, and it actually started from the 13th century, right after the Kalhan was finished with writing his Vastaraj Tarangini. So have you ever discussed that with your husband, or is he curious, and do you want to probably kind of scrutinize his where his ancestors were from and how this all happened, because I think he is very important part of this genocide also.
It is, and I mean, you asked me a brilliant question. It's a dinner conversation. I mean, my both my kids grew up with this sensitivity,
Right.
and there is an as much as there is an intellectual curiosity,
Mhm.
there is also a quest of who we are. That really makes him ask this question, and then embrace what being a Kashmiri Pandit, what the customs, the culture that we have,
Right.
because it comes from that reverence that you know I mean, this is who I might have been
Being
10
absolutely
generations before.
right.
So there is absolutely that awareness, and there is that conversation. As I said, my kids were, I mean, they were brought up with that strong sense. I mean, both my girls, talk about being Kashmiri, and it's for them it's a sense of pride,
Right. Right.
and they talk about genocide very openly. They're not hesitant. In fact, my older one, who just turned 18,
Okay.
she has a blog called "It's a Brown Thing." I mean, dedicated one whole chapter
Hmm.
to what happened to Kashmiri Pandits,
Wonderful. Wonderful.
and I mean, she's as she talks to her friends, as she talks to there are some of her friends are so intrigued that one of her friends, he wrote his research paper on
Hmm.
Kashmiri Pandit genocide.
Yeah.
So these are some of the I'm just giving you some of the small examples of that, what that awareness can do.
And
It can,
we would definitely like to invite her also to understand from her perspective as a young girl, how does she look back, and when she actually listens to you, what are her innate feelings about what she feels about that sense of longing and yearning she has for Kashmir. Absolutely.
absolutely, she will. It will be an honor for her to be here.
Right. And Madhuji, I'll take you back to Kashmiri Pandit diaspora, because this is the season one of the podcast, and it has been entirely dedicated to the even the the guests that have come here before you. So they're all prominent personalities from the Kashmiri Pandit diaspora, screwed across the globe. So Mevin Tomara, I want to understand. It's a very important question. By the way, I also feel this quite, deeply. This that how important, because I am a part of diaspora myself. So how important is it for, all of us, including me, to, preserve our kosher language, kosher pat kath karin and cultures and different tradition. If it is agar toy recently I saw Mark Kormut, there was a very recently a debate between ki yus kosher but Shivratri ch banawan suchana Shivratri sucha har ratri. So because we have a different way of more of a tantric Kashmir Shaivistic kind of a ritual of celebrating the marriage of the, the supreme. So even though my point is how important and how probably indispensable or imperative, all those words if I can use, how important it becomes, and onus is on the diaspora to help in the survival and revival of our language, culture, custom. How important you see this in your perspective?
Um, I think, there's an answer in your question itself.
Right.
It's critical. It's critical for our existence, and um, the good news is there is technology enablement, right? That can make it easy. Wuhwari bront, trihwari bront, that sense of community was very important, but that sense of community you could feel when you would be physically together.
Together, absolutely.
Wynkenes wuchu toy chu Canada's mans, butchers US's mans, California's mans,
Right.
Ash Bhupinder ji, and
Nitin.
the entire Vipin ji, the Nitin ji,
Nitin.
and I mean the entire team. They're all over India. Some are dialing in from Jammu, some are dialing in from
Mumbai.
Mumbai.
Right.
So I would say, I mean, सवाल छुके escuta chukarun, अच्छा karun कि ना chukarun, that's not even a question.
Correct.
Absolutely karun, escuta chukarun.
So in other words, it's non-negotiable, right?
It's non-negotiable. Exactly. Toikarva ak, toikarva ak, kat, tu nisavalas mas,
Right.
toidet Shivratri hans example.
Right.
If there was one lesson that I learned, as I was growing up, I came into this country.
Right.
I was young. I was 20. I was 23 and a half,
Mhm.
24 when I came here. And as I went through my own journey, and there were many questions, and the spirituality, I mean, the seed of spirituality was with me because I was born in Kashmir. I am a Kashmiri Pandit. You grew up with it. And as I went through life, my biggest question came is ki yeles herat chikaran, is kya chikaran herat dit, but is, tamang matlab kya chu.
Yeah. Right.
This is a request that I have, and this is an appeal, if I may. Yel tu ito garasmas ka puja chu karan. Please take time and explain to your next generation. So चाहे तोय लकट शुर ٲسۍوٕ سُہ چاہے تۄہہِ نۄش ٲسۍوٕ زامتُر ٲسۍوٕ یُس کٲشُر آسہِ یا نہ آسہِ کٲشُر تِمن سمجھٲوِو تُہۍ اتھ وِدی منٛز یُس تُہۍ وِدی چھِو کران امیُک مطلب کیاہ چھُ تہٕ اگر نہٕ تۄہہِ پانہٕ چھو پاے پلیٖز پانہٕ کٔرِو پاے
Bring some expert in. Right. Exactly.
اٹس ویری امپورٹنٹ کہ تُہۍ سمجھِو کہ یہِ تُہۍ پوٗزا چھِو کران تمیُک مطلب کیاہ چھُ بہٕ دِمو تۄہہِ پٔرسنل ایگزامپل
Sure.
اَسہِ ٲسۍ پنڈت جی یِوان ہیرَس دۄہ یِم وٹُک پوٗزا ٲسۍ کران تہٕ ایز اے چایلڈ یا مطلب اکھ میموری میٲنِس بٲیِس مےٚ چھِ یاد کہِ أسۍ ٲسۍ آسان بہہِ اَکہِ بجہِ تام راتس
See Hushar. Hushar.
ہُشارے روزُن بیٚیہِ پھاکَے رایٹ
Very excited. Yeah.
and so you would see ki kuta, kya chu dastarkhan kya chu banyover, but you couldn't really you couldn't eat. You had to wait,
You have to wait. Yeah. Obviously.
and then you had to go up and down. Kaise saman os asan anun, hu asan anun, yo asan anun. Pandit
Right.
ji svaran ki ye ni hu ni.
Right.
The magar you mule न ki is samjhe ki tim kya chi karan, tim
Karan.
kya chi kit pat chi karan.
What is the metaphorical meaning behind? Right.
That's
Exactly.
exactly correct. Aapne tantra bola. Tantra is a science. It's metaphysics.
Exactly.
If we don't decode it,
Mhm.
for the next generation, this knowledge is not going to pass on.
It will be lost.
And the beautiful, Shivism, right?
Mhm.
Kashmiri Shivism is going to
Yeah.
just get washed. I mean, you talk about Lal Ded,
Mhm.
right? Such a revered saint of
Mhm.
14th century.
Right.
तो ये कितने सारे सेंट्स जिन्होंने बहुत सारा काम किया है शिविज्म में. आई
Right.
डोंट थिंक वी नो इट. लक्ष्मी जूस,
Lakshman Ju, Swami Lakshman.
as I take his name, उन्होंने, a scholar that, I mean, there are people across the world that tune into his teachings, right? His discourses, to understand what Shivism is, what
People,
Kashmiri Shivism is.
people from all over the country. Absolutely.
It's the most prestigious knowledge. I mean,
Right.
Kashmir used to be the gateway of the continent,
Absolutely.
right? I mean, the I mean,
The
your,
fountainhead of the knowledge.
हाँ जी, जो हमारी हेरिटेंस है, when so वंकनस पाकिस्तान occupied Kashmir's months,
Mhm.
हमारी जो यूनिवर्सिटी थी,
Sharda, yes.
Sharda University, that is, I mean, Silk Route
Silk
was the
Route.
Kashmir path. So it was melting pot,
Absolutely.
and people used to come there to learn.
No.
What is the purpose of their life,
Right.
right? Scholars, artists, business tycoons, mathematicians, they used to come there to learn. So, I mean, my humble request to all the viewers that are here or that might hear about this podcast is,
Later.
please understand the essence of your being, which is Kashmiri Shivism. That's the supreme knowledge. And that if you are able to give that knowledge to your next generation, sky is the limit.
Absolutely.
They will be the innovators. They would really write the next chapter of what the innovation would be, because everything is in that. अगर आप decode करेंगे, हर एक
Everything.
knowledge उसमें. तो
Right.
Utah important school ga sunchu, Utah important shu yite.
Right.
Timan hitchnei to, timan div to adved knowledge div to. It's very, very important. Just help them tune in.
Wonderful, wonderful, and that's again, I mean, very important and critical messages that you are giving here. I want to take you back to 1990 because it's very important to understand. You were probably the youngster who has seen this bare and naked with her eyes. So the coexistence in Kashmir, I would prefer to call it the so-called coexistence in Kashmir. It was rejected by the absolutely by the majority community of the valley. And the sloganeerings of that time that we used to witness ke अश बनाओ उन पाकिस्तान बट और उसकी बटना सान यहाँ क्या चलेगा निजाम में मुस्तफ़ा कश्मीर में रहना होगा तो अल्लाह अकबर के ना all those kind of slogan. The sloganeering is basically the reflective of the mindset of a person or a community, or a collective conscious, if I may say that. So do you think, and I am pretty sure that you must have heard recently we had genocidal targeted killings in the valley, and we lost so many of our brothers and sisters who were there as employees, going there for their bread and butter. So in this current scenario, do you think that going back to Kashmir is possible? And if you think it is not, so I would really want you to highlight the importance and demand of Panun Kashmir, a separate homeland for Kashmiri Pandits.
Um, I mean, a question that has been politicized quite a bit,
Mhm.
right? And I haven't been to Kashmir. I just want to say that I haven't been to Kashmir. It's been my last, you know, um, memory of Kashmir was the day we migrated.
Mhm.
And आपने मुझसे पूछा, is it right to go to Kashmir?
Mhm.
मेरे और मेरे हस्बैंड के बीच ये कॉन्वर्सेशन पिछले 20 साल से हो रहा है.
All right.
हम कश्मीर जाएंगे कि नहीं जाएंगे, and him not being, he wasn't raised in Kashmir, he was raised in Delhi.
Right.
उनका हमेशा से point of view था कि you're not welcome there.
Mhm.
Why would you go? You're
Right.
not welcome there. Why would you go?
Go.
Very basic.
Very,
Very
I think, yes. Very,
not welcomed. Why would you go?
right.
Toy prospu में वारिया important सवाल as much as it has been it has become a agenda of politics. It's
Right.
also it's 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 a topic of our existence.
Right.
What as an indigenous civilization
Mhm.
do we have? Should we go back or not?
Right.
Um, I think, I mean, the answer is absolutely yes. I
Mhm.
mean, when I look at my Nanima Babi, um, and I think I look into her eyes, and if there is one hope that she has is Sokar Panne Kashir.
Gaurav. Wow.
Sokar Gespangar. Keski söz wandes khatırgımız neçvisniş.
Ah, she never.
89 so
She never
wandes
returned.
neçvisniş. She
Mhm.
didn't leave
Right.
thinking ki soyine vapas.
Wapas.
The way, I mean, imagine the sense of loss that she has. I mean, and there are many people like her, right? That still hope that they will go back.
Right.
So I think the answer is absolutely we have to go back, but the question is how.
Mhm.
So going back is non-negotiable. Going back is that's our basic right. We need to
Right.
claim that. We cannot not go to Kashmir.
Right.
How is what we need to solve for?
Correct.
and and my again, I'm a very simple person. I like to simplify things,
Right.
and I would say how is where we get back the dignity,
Mhm.
and where we get the security
Right.
that we haven't felt for 700 years. it's
Years.
it's a long
Way.
I mean, it's a long violence against
Right.
a community that's indigenous. So is it? I mean, it's not just a question
Mhm.
for our community. It's a
Yes.
question for government of India
India also. Right.
on how would they protect a civilization
Correct.
that's native to Kashmiri,
Very important point.
native to Kashmir.
Right.
And I think it's for them, it's for the policymakers, it's for our politicians to really answer that question.
Absolutely.
It really broke my heart
Mhm.
when I heard कि बारामूला में जी flats बनाए गए. They
Right.
would be given to Kashmiri Pandits, and I just put my grandfather, I put my dad, I put my mother, I put my Mama ji, um, in I was just trying to put myself in their shoes, and I was trying to think how would they react.
Right.
I mean, मेरे जो नाना जी हैं उन्होंने
Mhm.
उन्होंने दिन रात किया, एंड लॉबिंग जहाँ पे कश्मीर बटन जमीन all of the sudden गसन आकाश करन,
Right.
right? I mean, he was part of that moment. He was
Oh, okay.
leading
So
that.
he was working anti-encroachment of Kashmiri Pandit
That's
properties, right?
exactly correct. I mean, he literally gave his youth away for that
Right.
moment, right? I mean, my nani ma tells me the stories कि मतलब रातों रात दिल्ली कित पड़ गई थी कित पड़
Right.
मील थी बहुत prominent Kashmiri Pandit थे that were part of the cabinet and were close to that cabinet. How he worked around that,
Tirelessly. Right.
creating that moment. अब आप उन्हीं उन्हीं को अगर आप 1,000 स्क्वायर फुट का घर देंगे,
A confinement type of a room.
is
Right.
that dignity?
That's not even justice, right?
Is the I mean, you're stripping us from the dignity that we had.
Where we had.
And it's, mind you, it's not, I'm not saying that SS Gaman and Gam is SS,
Right.
I mean, I'm reclaiming that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, approach us, look at us with some dignity. We have been through a lot already.
Absolutely.
Where is that compassion? Where is that empathy? Have that empathy towards a community that has been a victim for a very, very, very
Long.
long time. Yet we have persisted. We have not just existed, we have persisted. We have persisted with a sense that we are Kashmiri Pandits and we are Bharati. We would my grandfather used to worship um, you know freedom fighters.
Mhm.
उनके बेडरूम में उनकी पिक्चर्स नहीं थी और उनकी वाइफ की पिक्चर्स नहीं थी, उनके बच्चों की पिक्चर्स नहीं थी, उनकी बेडरूम में फ्रीडम फाइटर्स की
Freedom
पिक्चर्स.
fighters.
And that's the sense, that's who an average Kashmiri Pandit is.
Is
So can you really, I mean, how can you not give them the dignity that they deserve,
that
is
is
the message that I would I would leave you with.
absolutely. And I think couple of points just to sum up. You said very important things. Number one, I think I should say that in my previous question, you actually narrated the contribution of Kashmir. The Vedic, Sanatan, Indic Kashmir to the rest of the country. Like you mentioned, Sharda Pit University, how it was like the high
Entire world.
entire valley, right? Exactly to the
I mean, यूरोप से लोग आते थे,
right
right, following that silk route.
route
Persia से लोग आते थे, Chinese, I mean, the Buddhism that we see in Vietnam, we see in China, we see in
has
Thailand,
gone from Kashmir, right?
it has come from Kashmir.
And this is I mean, the point I was trying to make, that you have actually busted those propagandas and those false narratives that we hear off late, that they say that Kashmir has got nothing to do with Indian or probably Sanatan civilization. So number one, and number two is the second very important point that you have been making is calling upon the state of India, the government of India, to act, because obviously the broader, and I think the majority opinion of the Kashmiri Pandits is that these accommodations that have been that are coming up in different places and districts is a joke, nothing else. So that's the exact reason why I asked you that question, that how important is it, the creation of a separate homeland, just like we have different union territories coming up. We actually already had those created, like Telangana, Uttarakhand, Jharkhand. So this has been the voice and demand of Kashmiri Pandits from last 30 years, that we also need a union territory for our return, because unless and until we don't have land under our feet, it's very hard to survive the culture, the language, that all those things. So Madhuji, I'll ask you one more question, and it's a very important question, and then we will go to the question and answer session. And this question is coming from a young boy, and he I was talking to him yesterday, and he said that please ask this question to your next guest. He says that there is a very strong notion amongst the the community members, that those who have settled abroad, overseas, they don't even think of Kashmir now, like people who are still in India in different cities, and this is more to do with the exile consciousness. So, do you support this idea, or do you think that this is not true?
Um, it's a very generalized question, and I can empathize with the question itself and the space this
Right,
person must be coming from
right,
as he or she asked this question.
right.
Um, and there is a subtle call to action, if I may, in that question.
Absolutely, there is.
And the call to action is you're not leaning enough. And I wish I could say I could say one way or the other. Are we leaning enough as a community,
Community.
or not? But I will share my side of. I mean, I will absolutely share my experience. I mean, in my household,
Mhm.
we do everything that my grandmothers would want me to do
Right.
as a Kashmiri Pandit. So am I doing my part to carry the culture, carry the
Along.
customs of
Right.
being a Kashmiri Pandit? Absolutely, yes.
Right.
Now, from beyond this, the four walls, beyond
Right.
my home, what else am I doing? I think that's a bigger question, and
Question.
that's something that we have to delve in and really see what are the areas that can be impactful, right?
Impact.
I mean, uh, I know. Kashmir Files was an amazing contribution
Exactly.
from a
Vivek.
Kashmiri Pandit who was right. I mean, the collaboration
I think
with
the scene that you actually narrated for us, like your father on the attic, and large commotion and crowds approaching, and then he actually is holding you, and you are holding him tighter. So actually, when you were telling that, I was actually going back to the Kashmir Files scene that I saw, obviously. So I think Vivek ji has done a great job in taking our past.
Absolutely. And it took how many years? How many
Right.
decades did it take?
Decades.
Right. But I think it happened, right? And it created the awareness. I took my 70, she was 17 at that time. I also took my 11-year to see the picture. She couldn't sustain it even for 2 minutes. She left crying. But it was so important. And I think the call to action here is, what are other areas that we can contribute in, and we can collaborate in to really make people that are back home,
Mhm.
that are in Jammu. I mean, I do feel that they're closer to everything that's happening in Kashmir. So
Kashmir.
what are the ways that we can really lean in and help contribute?
All right.
um, and I mean, and really take this perception of the elitist away, because
Mhm.
it's every Kashmiri Pandit is an elite or is not, irrespective of
Irrespective of whatever,
where
right?
they are, whether they are in Jammu or they are in
Delhi.
California.
Right. So, Madhuji, so I'll take the first question from my Q&A, and I think the first question is from the Nitin Darb himself. So he wants to know from you. So I'll just quote him. So he says, as you said, having witnessed early days of Panun Kashmir through one of its founding activist contributions, how do you see the role of Panun Kashmir in becoming the hope of the hopeless? And how important is this movement for overall existence of our cultural identity? So this question is coming from Nitin.
Nitin, it's a brilliant question, and you're asking this question to a person who literally grew with Panun Kashmir.
Right,
Uh, I mean, Panun Kashmir, as I was, and I'm talking about 93. I mean, it started way before, but 93 say I got associated, very closely associated. I mean, I remember the late night dinners with um, Dr. Agnishekhar, Ajay Bhaiya and
right.
whatnot. And that used to be an everyday, it used to be an everyday activity in my Matamal,
Matama. Absolutely.
along with Sri Ramesh Razdanji,
Right.
my Mamaji. So I think, how important is Panun Kashmir? I would say it is extremely, extremely important,
Right.
right? I mean, it was the first organization to to really uh, to really craft and to draft a vision of what it would be, for what it would take for the existence of Kashmiri Pandit.
Pandits.
So I think it's extremely, extremely important,
Right.
and I would say, as a next generation, Nitinji, I mean, please contribute. You're already doing your part. let more people come, tune in, understand the purpose, understand the ideology behind this organization, behind this movement. And but there are so many aspects to it. There is a cultural aspect to it.
Right.
I mean, one of my very cherished moments were jab Shri Fort mein, I was performing, and I did a solo performance being Mother Kashmir. I
Wonderful.
mean, it has such strong cultural heritage. I mean,
Heritage.
Himalaya ji, I think it was you. You said you were talking to Dr. Dilip ji.
Dilip
Dilip,
Kumar.
yeah, right? Amazing writer.
Right.
I mean,
One of the living genocide scholars we have right now in the world.
absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, we have such gems in this organization that our next generation can learn from.
Look up to. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I think we really have to utilize Panun Kashmir as a platform to tune in, to understand the aspect of our culture, our aspect of our politics, aspect of the heritage. I mean, they've already done so much of work.
Right.
I mean, my exposure to Abhinya Gupta was through Panun Kashmir. That was really, I mean, and it came from the conversation that I had with Dr. Agnishekhar.
Right.
And I mean, I was in second year of my college, and that seed was sowed, which made me teach my daughter Bharatnatyam.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
So, I mean, absolutely yes.
Right. And those are very important words coming from you, Madhuji. I will take the next question from Jagti. And Jagti say Rohit Pandita is asking a question, and I will just read this out because I got it on my WhatsApp from Nitin. So, Rohit wants to ask: we see often that all the political causes and movements of various communities are heavily supported financially and through lobbying and by ideological support and by other means by their respective international diaspora. Do you think such an active role of Kashmiri Pandit diaspora is missing or is required more vehemently to support the political struggle of Kanan Kashmir?
Huh. It's a very deep question.
Question, right?
Um, so I think as a community, right, there is a role that we play, whether we are overseas or we are
In India, right?
in India. The question is, how much interaction are we having,
Correct.
right? And that's where, I mean, communication, interaction is extremely
Important.
important. You cannot have an event once a year and think that there will be a change.
Absolutely. It's again very important point.
So the question is, do we have that bilateral communication with with each other,
With each other.
irrespective of where we live?
Exactly.
And as a community, are we clear in what is that operating model that
Mhm.
we are going to be really working off of? Who's
Right.
doing what? And do we have consensus in that? I think
Right.
that's something that we have to understand and
Understand.
lean in. But the more example, Jewish community has.
Community. Right.
Tuhun genocide catch in question.
Correct.
Son genocide catch you in question,
Question. Very important point. Yes.
right? As a community, what did they unlock? They
Correct.
unlocked oneness.
Right.
Nobody went family to family ki toy kuta zulum go.
Go.
Zulum gav, that's a period. As
Correct.
a community, that's one thing. And then they had an operating model
Right.
that they worked on. Toyniun Jew New Yorkismus
And
or
it's right.
Toyniun Jew Yus Russiasmus Winkenas Rosa. They have one voice.
One voice.
I mean, they sing from one hymn book. It's because they have one operating model
Right.
and they're very, very clear in roles. So, I mean, जो आपने सवाल पूछा, and
Rohit.
I would
Yeah.
say let's find that oneness. right? And let's really start communicating and come up with an operating model that where there is consensus so that we can push forward in one direction. Let's not message pane dilute kara, I mean, with the with suspicion, with criticism, and it's not constructive, it's just destructive, which really propels us backwards.
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
mean, in 90s Panun Kashmir was so close to success,
Right,
so close to success. The momentum that this organization created was enormous, enormous. And mind you, there were families that got sacrificed to get that momentum, and mine was one of them. I mean,
absolutely,
Sri Ramesh Razdan was one of them.
absolutely, absolutely, and we acknowledge that absolutely. So,
And
yes, sure, please.
please go ahead.
So yeah, I was just like going to take my next question, and it's coming from Neha Rana. She says that I hello ma'am, I study in class 12th in Bantalab, Jammu. I was listening to you, and I want to what one message would you like to give to all the Kashmiri Pandit girls living in India?
Neha, it's so good to hear from you, and I'm so excited that you dialed into this podcast. One message that I would like to give to all young Kashmiri girls is, don't let anybody define what you can do. Believe in yourself and think big. Sky is the limit, and have that conviction in your heart, in your mind, and then follow your journey fearlessly. But living with dignity is one message that I would say. Don't compromise on the values that your parents have, instilled in you. Live with those values, carry those values, but think big. Sky is the limit. Don't let anybody tell you you cannot do it.
Wonderful. So I think last question I'll take from Vishal, and Vishal lives in Delhi, and he is also watching this live, and he writes, "Ma'am, good evening. I would like to know from you the reason why Kashmiri Pandit voice has been largely ignored by the international community, whereas they are very proactive in taking up when it comes to Rohingya, Syria, or more Muslim crisis in the world. Whom do you blame for it?" So I think it's a very important and potential question is asked.
Uh, it's a very profound question, and
Right.
I think there are many layers to answering this question. Um, Panu Kashmir was one of the only organization that had the awareness
Right.
and the recognition that please don't call us migrants,
Absolutely.
urchin migrant.
Bilkul.
Yeli tuhun state, yeli tuhun's government, government of India, chu toy migrant
Rukas man.
country manswanan.
Mana.
They are taking away what happened to you. They
Absolutely.
didn't they didn't recognize that there was a genocide, there was a mass genocide that happened to Kashmiri Pandits.
Absolutely.
So that was the first injustice that happened to Kashmiri
And
Pandits.
that's what I think we call as denial of the genocide by state of India.
That's exactly correct. So I think that's really where the recognition
Right.
of what's happened to us, what's happening to us, did not get recognized by international communities,
Community.
international organizations. And I must say that Kashmir Files did an amazing, I mean, they really brought to light what happened to Kashmiri Pandits at an international platform.
Level.
I mean, I was talking to a non-Indian
Right.
colleague of mine who went to Kashmir with
Okay.
his family,
Wonderful.
and he had watched Kashmir Files before he went to Kashmir.
Right.
And I mean, I had an hour long, he's a Caucasian. I had an hour long conversation with him
Mhm.
about Kashmiri Pandits, about Kashmir Shaivism.
Right.
But that's the recognition, that's the awareness
Awareness.
that got really
It
brought in.
went to the next level. Absolutely.
That's exactly, I mean, was raised. It wasn't next level. It was that's when it really happened for the first time.
I think you have answered Vishal's question very well, and I think, let me, if you just allow me to rephrase it. So, what you are saying is that unless our own state, our own current political dispensation at the center doesn't, I mean, if it doesn't recognize our genocide, so it's very hard for the international community to come in our support and actually call our genocide as a genocide. Madhuji, I'm also running short of time, and it was really a pleasure and an absolute delight to have you here on this show and the podcast. And I would definitely, request you to, and I would definitely invite you in the upcoming shows and maybe panel discussions and debates that we are going to have, to come as a participant and enlighten us and the way you have been doing. Thank you so much for being a part of the show today. And I look forward to you, all of you, to the next. Tatandi ijazat. Jai Pan Krishna.
Namaskar. Thank you so much, Himalaya ji, Bhupendra ji, Nitin ji. Really appreciate you having me over. What an amazing MC you are, Himalaya ji. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.